There's been a few attempts to get Marvel's first family right for the big screen, but they've all fallen short. So, how have they fared with their debut in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? The Fantastic Four First Steps is a breath of fresh air because we're no longer in the usual time setting. We're now back in the 1960s in this retro feeling universe, which is different from the usual 616. And as Kevin Feige has said, you don't have to do any homework for this film. You can just go in and watch it without any previous knowledge of any other Marvel film or TV show. You can just go in blind and watch it as someone new to this whole Marvel world. And I think that's what has been needed for the MCU after having so many Disney Plus shows to watch and so many films as well at one point. It's now great, but they've slowed down a bit. Like we've got this film, and now the next film is not till July next year for Spider-Man: Brand New Day. So there's some time just to actually miss the MCU. One of the positives from the 2005 Fantastic Four was the chemistry within the team and some of the casting choices as well, with Michael Chiklis as the Thing and Chris Evans as the Human Torch. This time round, I think you'll probably know at least one of these actors from another thing they've been in, such as Pedro Pascal, he's been in Game of Thrones, Star Wars, and also The Last of Us, Vanessa Kirby from The Crown, Joseph Quinn from Stranger Things, and Ebon Moss-Bachrach from The Bear. And by the end of the film, you do believe that they are a family. It's just that they could have used maybe a few extra scenes here and there between each of the pairings just to establish the bonds more. Like, I felt much more of a connection between the Thing and Johnny back in the earlier film because they had that, banter between each other. Which doesn't really come into play here as much because there is so much attention on the main objective that is the impending doom of Galactus.
I herald Galactus.
So let's talk about Galactus, who this time is not inside a cloud, but instead looks much more like he does from the comics. He's played by Ralph Ineson, who it was a great choice because he has that bass to his voice that commands respect and makes you sit up in your seat. And this time around, we actually get to see him and feel that he is such a huge threat because he's like the asteroid coming for the dinosaurs. They're just waiting for him to arrive and gobble up their planet. And so how do you defeat such a beast like this? And so that's sort of those sort of calculations that we're seeing Reed do specifically, and also the whole team do get you really involved with the story. And I think with Galactus, he has a bit of that arrogance around him as well, a bit like the Chunabog from Fantasia, where you just sort of look at him like, yeah, he thinks he is it. He's the one who's going to get his own way. With Galactus, we also have the Silver Surfer, who is a female this time, played by Julia Garner. And I do think that she did work overall. Like, she has that close connection with Johnny because Johnny's the one who can fly, and also he's someone who's trying to work out the language of the Silver Surfer and build that bridge between the Fantastic Four and her, and to convince her that she doesn't have to work for Galactus. And there was a great chase scene around the midpoint of the movie involving her, which is probably one of the best action scenes in the whole film. And like, that whole sequence was one of those where you are completely locked in. With this version of the Fantastic Four, they decided not to go for another origin story where we're seeing characters learn about their superpowers, but instead they just do that via a montage at the start of the film, and then we're jumping further in time when they're fully established within this world, and we can see that how they are seen by the general public and how important they are for the safety of the world. And so for a character like Ben Grimm, we don't see that shock and horror and acceptance at becoming the Thing, but instead he gets a little story where he's trying to get closer to this girl who's played by Natasha Lyonne, but it doesn't really amount to much within the movie. It feels a bit like a half-cooked sort of job there for him because they needed something for him to do, because you have Johnny with the Silver Surfer, Reed is the brain of the operation, and Sue's dealing with being pregnant and eventually giving birth to a baby. So it's like, well, Ben's got to do something. Something that has been lacking recently of the MCU is the amount of relationships on show. Like recently we've had Wanda and Vision, but around the original Avengers time, we had Tony and Pepper, you had Steve and Peggy, you had Thor and Jane, and you also had Bruce and Natasha have their thing as well. So the introduction of Reed Richards and Sue Storm to the MCU, I think, is very beneficial to help ground the whole overarching story that they're trying to build up to when it comes to Avengers Doomsday and eventually Secret Wars. So I think these characters are coming at a really good time. A complaint I could see for this film is that sometimes it just moves a bit slow and there could be a bit more action, but I felt like the movie overall does move at a swift pace. I was never really bored because I was always so invested in the story and also trying to put myself in that position, because there are some interesting questions raised where you're like, what would I do in that situation? The Fantastic Four First Steps comes in with a runtime of just under 2 hours, but there were many extra scenes that did not make the cut, as well as John Malkovich, and so it would have been interesting to see what the film would have looked like with all those scenes included. I still do think the film could have used an extra 10 minutes so just to help, like I said earlier, with the characters and also the ending. It just feel like they could have used maybe an extra 5 minutes there. Someone who definitely deserves their flowers for this film is Michael Giacchino, the film's composer, because this score was definitely one of his best he's ever done. Like, he's done some great ones down the years, but this one really fits the tone well, and I feel like the Fantastic Four theme, it gets in your head, and it's just perfect for the setting here. And yeah, you should be incredibly proud for this one. So how will Fantastic Four First Steps do at the box office? Well, I feel like as this is one of the better Marvel films since Endgame, it will have that positive word of mouth to get people into the cinema. It comes out, a couple weeks after Superman, so it has that extra time, especially in August, to really rake in some money, because August and also September are not big months for blockbusters. It's not really until October we go back to a few weeks where we're getting big Hollywood movies. We're getting quite a few like horror films and indie films, but these aren't the sort of films which will take this audience away from Fantastic Four. So I think it's got a good chance now to have a few good weeks to generate some money. And I don't know if it's going to get to $1 billion. I'd be very surprised if it does, but it could get a respectable $600 to $700 million, which for Marvel in this climate, I think we'll accept.
That'll do, Donkey. That'll do.
One of the biggest compliments I can give to Fantastic Four First Steps is that, unlike many other films this year, as well as many other Marvel films, I'd happily go and watch this film again because I was invested in the story, the characters I enjoyed to be around. I thought that, like I said, the score was fantastic. The villain was good, actually, for a Marvel film, and also the action was gripping. So it had a lot of the components which I enjoy seeing from Marvel, and I just hope that now they continue from here and go on the up, because we could get another great period of Marvel movies. And I think director Matt Shakman should be very proud of this effort, because this is his first Marvel film after doing WandaVision, and I feel like now he's made a bit of a name for himself, where he can hopefully go on from here and do other fantastic jobs in the future. But what are your opinions on the Fantastic Four First Steps? Let me know in the comments down below. Like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe for more. Also, I have done other reviews for the previous 3 Fantastic Four films if you'd like to check those out. One of those is on screen right now, as well as another video that YouTube are recommending for you.